Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Rachel and this is Stitched Up. So today's video is going to be my Show Us Your Stash 2020 tag, and this is a hashtag that was started in collaboration between Danny from Pocket or Two and Shan from Kittenish Behaviour. And I'll link to both of their channels down below if you want to go and have a look. But basically, there's no prizes. This is just a really fun challenge for us all to have a little nosy at each other's stashes, because, you know, we love to do that kind of thing, don't we? What this challenge is designed for is anybody who has a fabric stash. So whether it's big or small and you want to share some of your precious fabrics with the rest of us in the sewing community, then you can get involved. So you don't have to have a YouTube channel, you know, as long as you've got either an Instagram or a Facebook ID, then you can take part in this. So, you know, please feel free to go and have a look at the challenge posted by Shan and Danny, and let's have a look at what you've got in your stash. Right, so the challenge itself consists of some questions, okay? And there are 8 questions altogether, and they're designed for you to really think about your stash. It's taken me a couple of weeks actually to really think about the fabrics that fit each of the categories, and also fabrics that I've not shared with you guys before and that you might be interested in having a look. So yeah, I've got a large stash, as I'm sure many of you are already aware, and it's taken me a good deal of thinking time to really come up with some really good options for you. So I hope you enjoy having a look at the fabrics that I've chosen for you today and hearing a little bit behind each one of them. So let's get started. Okay, so question number 1, I'm going to have to keep looking at my phone for this, by the way, just so that I can remind myself of the questions. Right, so question number 1 is favourite fabric. And this was a difficult one because obviously most of the fabrics I buy them because I love them, as we all do. And I'm very much a see a fabric, buy it without really knowing what I want to do with it. And that's just how I tend to buy fabrics. I'm not one of these people that gets a pattern and then thinks I need to hunt for a fabric to match that pattern, unless it's something that I'm already choosing from my stash. But if I'm just browsing the online stores, or obviously even in real life when they're open, then I tend to just choose fabrics that I'm drawn to. So I would say that I have a lot of favourite fabrics in my stash. One of my favourites is Lady McElroy. I love a lot of what they do, and yeah, they're probably up there with my favourites. But I think a lot of you already know that, and I think you'd probably be keen to look at something that you've probably not seen before. So I chose a fabric that's been in my stash for about 4 or 5 years now, and it's one of the earliest fabrics that I bought, but not the earliest. We'll come to that a little bit later. And in the early days when I used to buy fabrics and I was building my stash, I used to get only about 2.5 meters max. And so as I've moved on over the years with my sewing, and obviously style changes and trends change, etc., and I tend to buy between 3 and 5 meters now. So I've got a lot of my earlier fabrics that are around 2 meters, and quite often I don't know what to do with them. So I think this is probably why this one is still in my stash, because I love it so much, and also I want to do it justice, but I don't know what to make with it. So let's have a little look and I can show you. So this is a cotton that I got from the textile centre many years ago. They won't have this now, but this is it here. It's beautiful. So it's gorgeous. I think it has a real sort of Japanesey theme to it. It's got these beautiful flowers on, and then it's got birds on as well. You can see those birds there. And as I say, it's just a cotton. It's probably 45 wide, and I think originally this was probably sort of like a quilting cotton, but I would say I've got just over 2 meters of this, and it's gorgeous. And this is definitely one of my favorites. And I think originally when I bought this, I probably planned to make a dress from it, but I'm not sure now. And yeah, I don't know what to do with it. Having said that, I have recently made the Carolyn pyjamas. I made the shorty version, and I really love that set and really want to make some more. So perhaps these could be a pair of Carolyn pyjamas. I think they would probably work really well. But yeah, this I would never get rid of this fabric because I love it so much. But yeah, it's sat in my stash for a long time, and I think this is probably one of my favourites, just because I love the colours, I love the design. It's very sort of random. It's not sort of like a really obvious pattern repeat, and it's just gorgeous. So I think if we're talking about favourites, apart from obviously some of the Lady McElroys that I have in my stash, I would say this is definitely one of my favourites. Okay, moving on to question number 2, which is your oldest fabric. So this was actually quite difficult to establish because obviously, as I say, I have a huge stash, and trying to locate a lot of the older fabrics because they're all dispersed within my stash was a bit of a challenge. And on top of that, I think that some of the very, very early fabrics that I bought, I've probably destashed by now, and or made them up and worn them. And I think that my tastes have definitely changed. When I look back at some of the earlier fabrics that I've still got in my stash, I can see how my tastes in what I actually want to wear as to opposed to what I like in a fabric in its flat form is very different. And I think, like a lot of people, when you first start sewing, well, I certainly did, you tend to get drawn to the sort of novelty fabrics, particularly with cottons, because cotton is very easy to sew and it's great for a beginner. And yeah, I was very drawn to novelty fabrics when I was a beginner, and I don't really have many of those now because I think I destashed a lot of them because it's not generally the kind of thing that I want to wear. I don't really want to wear things that make me stand out, and novelty prints, whilst I love them, if you wear them in a made-up garment form, obviously they do make you stand out, because your average person on the street doesn't walk around wearing novelty prints, do they? And they tend to be a bit of a talking point, and I tend to want to, it might not come across on YouTube and on Instagram, but in real life I tend to want to just fade into the background and not be very obvious. So yeah, novelty prints aren't really the kind of thing that I wear anymore. So I moved on, I guess, from, well, I'm saying I moved on from novelty prints. This is one that I have had in my stash for a number of years that I've kept because I do love it, and it is one of the earliest fabrics that I got. And I bought this fabric from Regency Rags Fabrics. Some of you may remember them if you've been sewing quite a while, but they used to have an eBay shop, and they had an online shop as well, and they used to sell really, really inexpensive fabrics. Yeah, a lot was polyester, and a lot weren't that great quality, but you know, when you're a beginner and you're making loads and loads of mistakes, hell, I make loads of mistakes still now. I've had a few duds this last couple of months, but especially when you're a beginner and you are very nervous about sewing up something and ruining fabric, and yeah, some of your makes don't always come out the way you planned. I think that, you know, the inexpensive end of the market is the way to go, and I certainly have a lot of those fabrics still in my stash. Because, you know, if you make big errors, it doesn't matter, does it? So I've still got this one in my stash, and I do still really love it. And I bought this because one of the earlier bloggers that I used to follow before vlogging became a thing had made this up into something. I can't remember what it was now, and I found it on Regency Rags and thought, yes, I'm going to buy that myself. So this is actually a polyester crepe, and yeah, it's not the best quality, but I love it. I really love it. So this is it here, and it's black with these gorgeous deer on. It's just fabulous, and I think I've got 2 meters of this. And you know, from a distance, as I say, if you look at it now, it just looks a really nice print, doesn't it? And then when you get up close, you've got obviously these gorgeous deer. So I think, you know, it's not out there as a novelty print, but it's still a novelty print. But I do love this, and I think this is probably one of the oldest fabrics now that I have in my stash, because Regency Rags, I don't know what happened, but they're not around anymore. And yeah, this is just fantastic. I love it. So I've got about a couple of meters of this, and I think my plan originally was to make dresses. I love making dresses, and although I wear a lot of separates, but I do love making dresses, and I think my plan originally was to make a dress from this. I don't think I would do that now. I think a blouse would look amazing in this. A blouse or a shirt would look great. So yeah, it's still in my stash until I get around to using it, but I think dragging it out now has really given me a bit of an impetus to sort of think, what can I make with this? And get it made up and worn. So yeah, I would say that that's probably one of the oldest fabrics I have. So moving on to question 3, which is scared to cut into. So I would say I've got a few fabrics here, and I think this is probably the one that makes me quiver. And this is actually a very recent purchase. Liberty, we all know Liberty, don't we? We're having a spring sale. I don't know if it's still on, but I will link to it down below if it is. And they were selling a lot of their spring summer 2020 fabrics with a 30% discount. So even with the 30% discount though, obviously Liberty's still expensive, but I was very lucky in that my husband treated me to a length of this beautiful silk satin, which is the hibiscus print by Liberty, and this is it here. It's absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful print. And he bought me 3 meters of this. Now this at its original price was about £55 a meter. So obviously, you know, it's very expensive fabric, but obviously he got it for 30% off. So I'm very lucky, I know, and I've never had Liberty silk before. This is the first piece I've ever owned. So I've got 3 meters of this, and the plan was to make a dressing gown. And it's very thin, but it's not liquidy thin, if that makes sense, but it would need to be lined. I'm going to line this, I think, to make a nice dressing gown, I think with some kind of like fleece fabric, just so that it's a bit warm, and I think it gives a bit more, it'll give a bit more substance to it. But I don't want a thick fleece, I'd want a really thin fleece, I think. But it's gorgeous. I absolutely love this fabric, and because it was so expensive, and because it's Liberty, and because it's silk, I am very, very scared to cut into this because I've never worked with this fabric, this kind of fabric before. I've worked a lot with the sort of polyester, slinky fabrics, but never this. So I want to do it justice, and I want to make sure I have a fabulous, fabulous garment at the end of it. I haven't actually chosen a pattern yet, but I do have a vintage butterick dressing gown. I'll put a picture of it here. Pattern in my stash that I bought from Etsy a while ago, and although that one is very long, I don't think I would have enough of this to make it. I might do, but I'd have to see. But I think I'm going to toile it first. Well, I am going to toile it first. I'm definitely not going to just cut into this into a new pattern without toiling, but I think I will toile that first in another cheap fabric, probably the same kind of fabric as this, but obviously just a poly one that I've got in my stash somewhere, and just to see, get the fit right and everything, and see how it looks. But I think I would love to make that in this. I think, you know, to have a vintage silk dressing gown, that's just, you know, that's just everything, isn't it? So yeah, so this is the one that I am scared to cut into, and it's got pride of place in my stash right now. It feels so soft, it's so beautiful. Question 4 is don't have a clue what to make with it. Right, so this is a fabric that I immediately knew that was easy for me to choose that fits this category. And I think, just going back to what we were saying about novelty prints, I think when I first started sewing, I wanted to sew a lot of vintage type dresses because they were the kind of aesthetic that you don't really see anymore, and you can't just go buy off the peg. And I was very keen to be sewing things that you can't just go and buy. That has slightly changed over the years because I do tend to sew most things that I wear now. I think in the early days I was very much against sewing things like t-shirts and basics and leggings and all that kind of thing, because I thought I can just buy them cheap, what's the point? Not even cheap, but I can just go and buy them. What is the point in sewing something that I can just go and buy? So as I say, now I tend to, that has changed, and I do tend to sew most things that I wear. However, in the early days, as I say, a lot of what I wanted to sew was the vintage type, big 50s dresses and that kind of thing. But I quickly found that I didn't actually wear them, and I couldn't find a way for them to fit into my life. So this fabric is one of the remnants from that kind of era in my sewing, where I went for the vintagey type prints, and it's still sat in my stash. So this is a cotton fabric, and I think I have about 3 meters of this. This is it here. It's a gorgeous blue, floral, very vintagey, and I've got, as I say, I've got about 3.5 meters, I think, of this. It's not very wide. It is only 45 wide. yeah, so that's how wide it is. And I do like this print actually. I'm sure that I could try and fit it into my aesthetic now, but I'm not quite sure how. So yeah, I mean, it's, as I say, it's very pretty, very girly, isn't it? And really does have that vintagey feel, but it's just, I don't know what to make with it. So if you have got any ideas what you think I could make with this that would be something wearable in, you know, that I could fit into my life, then let me know. Moving on, we have the next question, which is question 5, which is fabric with a story. Now, again, this was one that made me feel a bit stumped for quite a while, and I really had to think about it. I mean, a lot of my fabrics don't really have much of a story, but I did find one that did. And this is a fabric, basically, when in the early days of my sewing, I bought a few patterns from a pattern company called, I think it was Salme Patterns. I will put a picture of the dress that I'm going to be talking about just up here, but this was called a kimono sleeve dress, and essentially it was a drop sleeve dress with sort of a loose blousey top with elasticated waist and just a little skirt that finished just above the knee. And yeah, I made a few of these actually in my early sewing days. I don't think I have any of them left now because I think they've all been donated. They weren't very good, to be honest, but you know, but those early makes you're always really proud of, aren't you? Because you've made something and it fits and it's amazing. But yeah, I think they've long gone now. But yeah, I made this dress out of a fabric that I got from the textile centre, which was a beautiful blush pink with black print on it in a viscose, and it was gorgeous. I absolutely loved it, and I wore it as soon as I made it. Went out for tea, felt great in it, put it in the wash, it shrank. And this was because I didn't pre-wash the fabric, and it taught me that obviously, you know, a lot of your natural fibre fabrics will shrink in the wash, like your cottons, like your viscoses, and all those plant-based fabrics do tend to shrink. And yeah, I washed this dress, hadn't pre-washed the fabric, tried it on, thought I'd put 3 stone on in about 3 days, and yeah, the skirt would not go on over my hips. I could get the top part on, but the skirt wouldn't fit. So I was devastated, absolutely devastated. Quickly went back onto the Textile Centre website to see if I could get any more of the fabric. It wasn't there, they'd sold out. So I was really upset because, you know, in the early days you spend a lot of time, I mean, you still can spend a lot of time on making things. And you know, to have gone to all that effort, especially when I was very new at sewing, and yeah, I was really upset because I loved the fabric so much, and I only had a few sort of scraps left of it as well, so I didn't have enough to make another version of it. So that went in the bin, and yeah, it did teach me that obviously I needed to make sure that I pre-washed fabrics, and I do that with every fabric that comes through now. So any fabric that I buy, whether it's cotton, whether it's polyester, anything, even the jerseys that tend not to shrink in the wash, they all go in the wash as soon as I get them. And I don't sew anything to wear until I've pre-washed it now. Really taught me a hard lesson. Anyway, this story ends by literally about 3 months later, I was on the Textile Centre website and they'd got the fabric back in stock. And I bought some. I bought 3 meters of it, and it's here. And this has still sat in my stash because I bought this with the aim of remaking that dress, and I never have remade it because, to be honest, I don't think I would wear it now. I don't think it's certainly at the length that it is. You know, we're talking 6 or 7 years ago where I still would wear dresses that came to above my knee, and I tend not to now unless I'm on holiday. But for an everyday dress, I wouldn't really wear that kind of style now. So, but this is the fabric here, it's beautiful. So it's still in my stash. It's a lovely, gorgeous viscose, very, very soft. And it's this print, this black print on it goes in sort of stripes. And as I say, I think maybe I've got about 2.5 meters of it. And what I was thinking, actually, since I've pulled this out of my stash, is that I think I would like to make a feature of the way that this sort of stripe runs. And I think it would be nice to have, I can't do this right, but maybe have it going stripy one way as a top and then stripy the other way as a top, maybe as a bit of a wrap or something. So yeah, I quite like that idea. In fact, I've been thinking a lot about the Ella blouse by Sew Over It. I made that a few years ago, but I made it as it was, as the pattern, and it was just far too short for me. So I need to lengthen that pattern. I know that it is a crop, but I'm quite long torsoed. So I think this would be quite nice to make into an Ella, but making a real feature of the way that these stripes run. That would be quite nice, wouldn't it? So yeah, that's given me a bit of inspiration. So that's my fabric with a story. It's not that exciting, is it? But it's the best one I've got. Next question is number 6, precious fabric and why. So apart from the Liberty fabric that I've just shown you, which is a very precious fabric, I have this one to show you, which is a fabric that I bought on our trip to Canada last year. We did a road trip around British Columbia and Alberta, and it was amazing. And we started from Vancouver and we ended up in Vancouver at the end. And on our last day before we were due to fly home, we found Fabricland in Vancouver, and I went for a little bit of a nosy. And yeah, it wasn't the best place, but I think I've had a lot of Canadian followers of my channel that have messaged me saying, yeah, Fabricland really isn't that great. But, you know, I had a good nosy and I found this fabric, which I bought as a souvenir of our trip. And it's this beautiful cotton. It's got leaves on and it's beautiful. I absolutely adore it. So I think I bought 3 meters of this. And it wasn't actually that expensive, certainly for UK sort of prices. I think this worked out round about £12 a metre, something like that. So yeah, I've got 3 meters of this and it's beautiful and I love it. And I still haven't decided what I'm going to make with it. It's definitely going to be a dress of some sort, but I want to make something that I know that I'm going to wear and that I'm going to keep forever, so that I've still got this as a reminder of our fabulous holiday last year. So so yeah, so although it's cotton, you know, it's not a really valuable fabric as such. It's very precious to me, and yeah, I really love this. Really love it. Question 7 is dream fabric. Now, this took me a little bit of thought because I couldn't really, I didn't sort of get whether it means, is this a fabric that you have seen that you can't afford or whatever, or a fabric that you've seen that you love but you would never buy it because you wouldn't wear it. I wasn't, or is this a dream fabric that you've got already in your stash because of the shows your stash? So I didn't quite understand the question. So I've gone for the dream fabric that is in my stash. So obviously the Liberty fabric that I've already shown you fits that criteria, but I do have 2 other fabrics, one that was not expensive and one that was very expensive. So I'll show you the very expensive one first, which is this one. So this is the City Lights fabric by Beckford and Silk, and this was expensive, and I've got 3 meters of this and it's beautiful. And I was first drawn to this by Shan, actually, from Kittenish Behaviour. She'd bought this after seeing Leah, who was in the Sewing Bee last year. She'd made a gorgeous dress out of it, and yes, it's stunning. So I waited until I could afford to get some, and I bought 3 meters of it earlier this year, and it's beautiful. This is one of my dream fabrics. I love the print, I love the feel of it. It's a real sort of, this is silk, but it's not got a sheen to it, but it's got a real sort of crepey finish. I don't know if that's going to come up on screen, whether you can see the crepiness of it, but it's beautiful. And I'm going to make a skirt out of this, and I plan to make the Fumateur skirt by Deer and Doe. I'm not quite sure if I've got enough because it's not that wide. If I just show you end to end, that's how wide it is. So it's really not very wide, but it's so stunning. I just think it needs to be a maxi skirt. So that's one of the dream fabrics that's in my stash. And the other one is this one, which wasn't so expensive. So this is a jacquard fabric, and I love this. I absolutely love it. It looks like it's all sort of embroidered, and I got this from Abercan a couple of years ago with the intention of making a little jacket. There's a thread count jacket, I think it's a thread count jacket that I made a couple of years ago in a black sateen that I got from the textile centre, and I bought this as soon as I'd made that jacket with the intention of making another out of this because it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful, I love it, and I've got a couple of meters of this. And I think what drew me to this was a lot of sort of these jacquard fabrics that we can get in the UK are very Chinesey. They've all got sort of these Chinesey dragon type prints, and I really don't like that print. It's not for me at all. So to find one that is you know, a totally different design was just lovely. And this is very thick. I mean, you can see the underside of that there. It's quite thick. It's got a really good weight to it, but it's still got a little bit of drape there. So it's not the sort of silky Chinese satiny fabric that you see that's a jacquard, but it's really lovely. Yeah, I love the colours in this, and it's just gorgeous. I don't know if they've still got this in Abercan now. I bought it online, but this is my other dream fabric because it's unlike anything else I've got in my stash, and I haven't cut into it yet. So I think that's all the categories done. Oh no, one more question. Where do you keep your stash? Okay, so as I've mentioned, I have a huge stash, and the majority of it is in my sewing room. I'm very lucky to have a sewing room. We have a 3-bedroomed house, and we have a son and a daughter, but our daughter moved out 3 years ago. Our son moved into her old bedroom, which is the second largest bedroom in the house, and then I took over his room to turn it into my sewing space. Up until that point, I used to sew in here in our dining room, on the dining room table. I did temporarily put my sewing machine and table in our conservatory, but found that it got too hot in there to sew during the summer months, and in winter it was too cold to sew in there. So when my daughter moved out, as I say, my son moved into her room and I took over his old bedroom as my sewing space. So that has a bed in it still for when our daughter comes home to stay, and the rest of it is filled with fabric and sewing paraphernalia, and I am rapidly outgrowing it. Yeah, I have one of those big IKEA Expedit things. I think it's the Expedit, and no, it's not. It's Kallax. I've got one of those huge Kallax units in there as well for all my fabrics, but they won't all fit in that now. And yeah, I have so much fabric that it is just growing and growing and growing and taking over that room. So our son is planning to go to university next year, and I think he'll be moving out at that point. So the plan is when he goes, I think I'm going to move into his room and make the sewing room that I'm in now back into a bedroom. And yeah, I'll have the bigger bedroom because I'll have more room. So yeah, that's where all my stash is. I don't generally have anything anywhere else. There is the only time I do is when obviously I buy new fabrics and I've washed them. They'll be in the utility room waiting to be ironed before they're put away, but otherwise everything is in there. So although it's a very small space and getting smaller by the minute because of all the amount of stuff in there, it is contained in that room, which is great. So yeah, so I think that is it. So I have I've answered all those questions, and I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into some of the fabrics in my stash that you've probably not seen before. And yeah, so I hope you're going to join in, because I always love having a nosy at other people's stashes. So you know, it's great to see what you all pick and the stories behind why you chose what you did. So so yeah, please do get involved if you can, and I hope you've enjoyed having a look at mine, and I will be back with you really soon. Take care, bye.